The title of Grandmaster was first officially awarded in 1950. Now, in 2017, at the St. Louis Winter Invitational, that tradition continues. Hello, chess fans, and welcome to another day of play here at the Winter Invitational, the GM and IM Norm tournaments. Starting today, where we play rounds 4 and 5, we're going to see the possible contenders get whittled down. The chances get less and less for our GM and IM Norm hopefuls. Stick with us right here on YouTube as we talk to some of the hopefuls, some of whom have come from all over the world to participate in this truly international event. So as part of the GM Norm field, we have one of the dream crushers here, the one and only celebrity grandmaster, Ben Finegold. Ben, hello.
Oh, you're talking to me. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just reading Twitter, and Donald said my games were the most exciting.
You know we're going to have to edit that out now. So Ben, you've had some really exciting draws in this tournament.
I've had the most exciting, and actually the ambulance had to come twice because people were just fainting at the sight of my games. Or something like that. I think that's what was going on. Unfortunately, I don't have any wins, but fortunately, I have no losses. So I did get it. Oh, hold on. I'm getting another text right now. Anish Giri said, good job. Okay. So, but he said, don't steal my thunder. All right. So I have 4 draws out of 4 games. Not for lack of trying, but trying is the first step to failure. All right, let's have a look in chronological order. My first game was against Arribas Lopez. I have a funny story about him, which takes about 20 minutes to tell. No, I'm kidding. I played him in the Pro Chess League a few weeks ago, and he was destroying me, and I found a stalemate trick, and he fell for it. So a solid draw. Very suspicious, too. Now, in this game, I decided to play a line in the King's Indian, and then I changed my mind at the board. And I played Bishop F4, the London system, which I probably played once in my life, maybe twice. Usually I have black in this position. Okay, let's get to the interesting part because the game was only 10 moves long. So in this position, my opponent played knight c6, and I thought he would play e5 at some point because he played knight c6. And then he tricked me by playing knight h5, and he chased my bishop around. And we got to this really interesting position here. And I actually thought about 6 minutes, 7 minutes in this position, and I didn't see any of the engine analysis, none of it. Usually I see a little bit. Okay, so first of all, one of the engines claims after knight takes g5, h takes g5, bishop g5, knight f6, h4, that white is better. I would say white is lost. So white's down a piece. That confuses me. What doesn't confuse me is the correct move in this position, which is g4. Are you watching, Matt Larson? The answer is no. Now the point of g4 is twofold. Obviously I'm threatening his knight. I didn't look at g4 at all. It never even occurred to me. I guess I should have been thinking about Matt Larson. If he plays knight f6, I save my bishop, I sacrifice my g-pawn, I play h4, and his king could get into some trouble. So the main line is bishop takes g4, then knight takes g5, confusing the audience at home and you. And the reason that black can't win a piece here is because in this position, even though black is ahead a piece, after rook g1, black's not very happy because I'm threatening queen g5, queen g4, and queen h6. And you can't defend against all that. And even if you could, white could play like king e2 or castles and just attack down the g line. So this is winning for white. After g4, the computer says white is up 0.6, which is a nice advantage. I didn't look at g4 for a second. I played bishop g3 and offered a draw. And my opponent accepted, even though he was probably about 20 minutes down the clock at this point. And of course, the engine says all zeros, because I think it was looking at my IQ test or something. All right, so that was my first game, Ben. Let's look at the other games. Now, round 2 was my most interesting, I guess, from many perspectives. I was black. I'll flip the board in case Mike Hummer watches the video. Okay. And I played the French defense, which I usually don't play. I did my special preparation. And I played the Fort Knox variation, which is to trade and play bishop d7 to c6. And I noted in my preparation for this opponent that he had only faced this once in the last several years. And In this game, he played a move he didn't play, which is very rarely played, which is very dangerous. The normal move is bishop to d3, which he's played before. And usually there's a lot of trading going on. You play knight d7, you play knight f6, and actually in the last Norm tournament we had here a few months ago, I had this position. Okay, my opponent played knight e g5, and I went into one of my big thinks. I'm famous for that. And the main moves are knight d7 and bishop e7. I thought he would sacrifice on f7 if I did that. So I played the move that I thought prevented the sacrifice on f7. I played bishop to d6. It turns out sacrificing on f7 would have made the game really interesting. This was actually his preparation, but he forgot bishop d6 because he prepared against so many moves. And this is a very interesting line. If you're just watching the video now, you'll think I can castle, but I can't, because I played king f7, king e8. By the way, in one of the Blitz tournaments here in St. Louis, that didn't stop one of my opponents. They moved their king, moved it back, and then castled. I claimed to win. Okay. And this position is super complicated. I think the computer prefers white slightly. Okay, instead of sacrificing, he played bishop to d3, and now after h6, the sacrifice doesn't make any sense because he can't play knight e5 or knight g5. I have them both protected. So he had to go back to e4. And I won't show you the whole game. I'll tell you something pretty funny. After we traded in c6, if you see this position on the screen right now, I'm actually 2 tempi ahead of a normal position. This position, after bishop to d3, there's a game that Nakamura won and many other grandmasters played. Bishop takes e4, bishop takes e4, c6. This is actually one of the main lines. In the game that I had this exact position with the moves h6 and bishop d6 inserted. So I'm playing a theoretical line 2 tempi ahead, and I'm still worse, but I'm slightly worse. Then we traded. We both castled queenside. The game was a draw. One more interesting thing about the game is we learned afterwards that this position here was played in a game Anand Karpov a long time ago. In that game, they both short castled and they drew, but we're more adventurous. We both long castled, although we still drew. That was my most exciting game. So wake up at home, you're falling asleep over there. Okay, and the last 2 games were not as interesting. I played Nikhil Kumar, the world under 12 champion, and this was my prep. I noticed Nikhil always plays the Queen's Gambit decline with bishop e7, and all of his opponents either play bishop f4 or they take on d5, then play bishop f4. And I've never done that. I've always played knight f3 and bishop g5. I saw no examples in my preparation for this position, and I've had this position a million times, even before he was born, and before you were born, and before you were born. And so we got this position, which I prepared. And here black has many moves, b6, c6, knight c6. He took on c4, which I've also faced. And in this position, things got boring pretty quickly, and there was a lot of trades, and the game didn't get very interesting. Until the very end, although I noticed your copying and pasting skills could use some work because that's not the end of the game.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Now in this position, we'll just skip over to here after lots of trades. White at some point wants to play knight f5, or you could say it at home, say it with me, knife f5. And Nikhil played the very accurate bishop c8 here, which stops knight f5 because he can take it. And the game concluded very peacefully. I have to make the moves myself. What kind of joint you running here? And in this position, after king f8, Nikhil offered me a draw, and the computer says 0, 0, 0. So I agreed after no, I didn't consult the computer. Okay, so that was a pretty boring final position. And if you thought that was boring, I got more boring for you. And it's my game with Checa. Hey, you pasted the whole game this time, good job. Yeah. I played white with e4, which I rarely do. I played the exchange French. I always play knight f3 here, but here I played c4, special preparation, because as you know, Ben,
it's explosive.
c4 is explosive. And this was my prep, and this was about, I looked at a lot of games of this line, and somehow this didn't get very exciting either. We got a lot of trades, and I tried to avoid trades, but then he traded everything. And at some point, I thought I was getting a worse position. So even though I was avoiding trades, here I thought I could get into trouble because queen b6 puts pressure on my pawns, and queen a5 puts pressure on my bishops. So I was like, all right, let's make this game a draw before I get worse. Computer says I'm slightly worse. And I traded and played queen b3, basically solving all my problems. My b pawn can't get attacked, my bishop on g5 isn't hanging, and we have opposite color bishops. And I offered a draw. As usual, I was down 20 minutes on the clock. Pretty good for me. And my opponent, who's 700 years younger than me, accepted. I'd like to let you know at home, the 3 youngest players in the tournament in my section, if you had all of their ages up, I'm much older than that. So it's not fair. It's not fair. Okay, so stay tuned next time when I come back and I'll show you more draws.
Well, hold on, Ben. I'm not done with you. I wanna ask you. I gotta ask. You're one of the big guys in the top field. Well,
oh yeah, I'm the big. Well, I don't know. One of those guys weighs a lot.
You're pretty big.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with these tournaments, you're essentially the dream smasher. Okay. Well, you're one of them. You're supposed to be the guy who puts the hold on these up and comers. So what is the incentive for you? You just showed us 4 draws. Do you come here?
I'm good at putting a hold on my comer. On the up and comers, not so good. Well, normally when I play in local yokel events, I play a lot of local yokels. So I'm playing players rated between 1,400 and 2,000 a lot, and I beat up on them. And that's not really good for keeping sharp. You want to play players between 2,350 and 2,600, which is in my rating range, to see if I can beat anybody. I think we know the answer to that. No. Of course, I'm a professional player, so the more they pay, the more I play. It's like pay to play. Wait, pay to play, who would do that in politics? Oh, I don't know. So I want to play these guys when they're 12, 13. Once they get to 14, I already can't beat them. And I've played 2 of the youngest players in the tournament, Nicolas D Checa, and I played the world youth champion, Nikhil Kumar. I got 1 left to Wonder Liang. We've played before and it was a draw, but now I'm getting sort of worried because he's about a year older than the last time I played him. That's not good. So I want to play the young players. I want to still keep in shape. But normally, instead of getting my +2 and +3 that I got 10, 20, 30 years ago, now I'm getting -1, -2. So 50% is pretty good for me.
Do you think that a no draws before move 30 rule would benefit you or hinder you?
I've played in such tournaments, but they don't make any sense. No. I tell you something funny. When I played Dreyev in the Pro Chess League last week for our team in St. Louis Archbishops, I didn't know what move we were on because I was in focus mode, which doesn't show you the moves. Then when the game ended, I noticed that Black had made his 30th move, which was me, and we agreed to a draw, an arbiter's dream. I don't think it would affect it too much, but probably my results wouldn't be better, let's put it that way, because the more 4-hour games I play, the worse I play. We're playing 2 games a day for half the tournament, and I'm 3 times the age of some of the players, so playing 7, 8 hours a day isn't good for my chess. 2, 3 hours a day, I can handle that.
Ben, in your field, who do you see as an emerging star in the world of chess?
Well, in chess. Emerging star in chess? Well, the young guys, obviously, Nicolas D Checa, Wonder Liang, Nikhil Kumar. Those guys are really young and really good. They're top of their age category in the world youth champions. Wonder's won at least twice, maybe 3 times. And those are the up-and-coming guys. The guys who are 18 and 19, how come they haven't retired yet? What's going on here? Of course, Tatev won today, so she's trying for an IM and a GM norm. Maybe she can get both. She's back at 50%. She had a bad tournament here last time. That's why you play again, so you can improve from last tournament.
Absolutely. Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing more of your games in the tournament.
Thank you, Ben.
For 7 players, the objective, earn a norm. However, the means to doing that differs for each player. For 6.5 points, Gorovets, Liang, Burke, and Ali Marandi can earn a GM norm. For only 6 points, Checa and Abrahamian can earn a GM norm. And additionally, believe it or not, for 4.5 points, Kumar and Abrahamian are eligible for an IM norm in this section. In the second field, the IM norm tournament, we have National Master Aaron Grabinsky here, who's had one heck of a day going 2 straight. Aaron, you just defeated International Master Angelo Young. First of all, congratulations. Take us through some of the highlights of this game.
Okay, so I knew he was going to play something offbeat, and sure enough, Knight H5, so that's it's not very common. Bishop G5, and then I got really surprised after C6, for sure. It's a tricky move, because if I play E3, pretty obvious, Queen A5, and I lose a bishop and he protects his knight. But after E4, I don't see the point of C6. It seems just wrong, because now his knight's attacked anyway, and if he plays knight back to F6, I gain more time by playing E5. So he played G6, which I expected, and bishop E2, and then knight G7. So already move 5, his knight is Finegold, so very, very typical for Angelo, I would say. I just kept developing, and yeah, d5, so I thought f3 was a good move. It kind of reminds me of the fantasy variation in Charousek, but here it seems even better because the knight is Finegold, so I was pretty sure here already I had a much better position. So a3, typical, you know, just so you can't take on b2 because knight a4, knight e6, bishop e3, and here I realized that I was thinking maybe I messed up because if I play e5, he can just take it, and I'm pinned on e3. And so this is a little annoying because he has a lot of pressure on d4, but knight a4, and I can get out of it pretty easily. My pawn center is very strong, so. Castles, yeah, I think a better move may have been b5. For example, let me just run through that real quick. If he plays b5, there was some interesting ideas, because I was thinking if I go here, then he would take, and my main plan was b4. I want to keep the pawn on d4. But then the problem is, I really wasn't sure at all about this. And I know he's a very aggressive player. My knight on g1 is kind of out of play, and it just seems very tricky, and I don't know if I want to go for this. So that's why I think b5 might have been better. I was planning on taking on d5, not playing knight c5 right away, and then after takes here, it's a much better version because after I've traded, now the pawn on b5 is hanging because I've traded and weakened the c6 square. So now he has to deal with this, and then I have time to play f4 and knight f3, and then everything's good. White has a very solid position. So that was an interesting idea of b5. But anyway, castles. So b4, I'm just seizing space, knight h3. And so I felt, yeah, it was very good for me. And then he kind of shocked me again with c5, very unexpected. And I realized his dark square bishop is exerting a lot of influence. My knight on b2 is getting forked if I take everything on c5. So takes. But still, after knight f2, I think white's would still be much better because it's like a Grunfeld, but my f-pawn is gone, but he has no c-pawn to pressure d4. So the center is very strong for me. Bishop b7, yeah, queen c2. So now his knight's actually attacked. Knight e6, yeah, I didn't know what else he was going to do. Rook c1, the point is the queen was undefended and he was threatening to take on d4 because he's pinning the c-pawn. So I have to play rook c1. Rook c8, and again, the same idea, so queen b3. Now he can't take on d4 because I'll take with the pawn, and then the bishop defends the rook on c1, so that all these tactical ideas don't work anymore. And here d5 is probably not a great idea because knight a5, and I'm not winning a piece, and if I take the pawn on b5, let me just show real quick, d5. Knight a5, queen takes b5, rook b8, or something like this. I'm not 100% sure. No, not here right away. Sorry, he would move his knight, probably knight f4. And I mean, this probably is good for white. I'm a pawn up, but especially with c3 hanging, and it just seemed like the type of position he would be better at than me. So I decided to play it safe and not do anything rash. I just castled. Oh, sorry, for knight c6, yeah, I castled. I didn't fork him because it's just a messy position. So a6, queen a2. The idea is to get out of knight a5, attacking my queen, and also threatening the fork, obviously, because there would be no tempo. So knight d8, bishop f3, queen a5. Yeah, and here, queen back to b3. I was very happy with my position, but after rook c7, he's going to double, and the c-pawn is weak, so I had to find a way to defend that. There's also some weird tactics on d4. If I'm not careful, he can potentially do something nasty. For example, if I play knight d3, or no, I think it was rook c2. Then he has this annoying idea, rook c8, rook c1. And I think, I'm not 100% sure, but there were some ideas where, especially if my knight's moved, he can potentially take on c3. So let me just show you an example. Like if I'm not careful and I move my knight, there's a very annoying move. And now I think I'm in big trouble because he's taking f3 and the bishop will attack the rook again, and now I think I'm just lost. So I have to be very, very careful after rook c7. So I played rook f d1, rook a c8, bishop d2. So now there's no funny business on c3 or d4 because I'm not really hanging anything. I just have to be careful not to move my knight too quickly because he still might have some sacrifice ideas. So queen b6, yeah, I have to get the king out of there. I don't want any nonsense on d4. So knight c6 again. If d5, knight a5. So Knight c4, a nice move, forcing queen a7 and then knight e3. Now knight d5 will be very strong, so he played knight a5, queen a2, knight c4, and I figured my center was pretty strong, so I was happy to trade pieces here. And now my knight's coming to e3 and then to d5, the same idea. If my knight gets to d5, it'll be very good. Queen a8, and here, yeah, I don't know if I should have allowed this, but I didn't see, I think after knight g4 I've kind of committed myself after queen a8, because if I defend the e pawn, he'll go f5, and then it's kind of a mess, because if I take f5, he'll take f3, and it's kind of awkward on the diagonal. So I figured I was committed to winning the exchange, and it looked really good in my head, but in hindsight, it seems a little hard to win, especially, you know, he has a pawn and a knight, but the position's closed, and it's pretty difficult. I have to work very hard here. So queen b1, yeah, rook a4, just have to go back to b2. It's a very annoying position. Rook f1, I knew I was better, but, I mean, for example, it's very hard, because if he plays e6, threatening the a3 pawn, I'm pretty sure it should be 5, and then if takes a3, queen f2, and if takes c1, queen f6, and that should be game over, I believe. Queen f2, should take c1, queen f6. Yeah, and here maybe king f8, but no, this is no, it's just lost. Queen h8, bishop f6, and I take his knight. So bishop f4, he played knight c6 instead of e6. Rook e1, so this got pretty interesting. f6, I don't know about f6. Seems like it's a little weakening, but. And bishop c7, this is a nice idea. If I don't have this idea, I think it's really hard, because now I'm going to reroute my bishop to c5 and put pressure on e7. The bishop is definitely well placed on c5 because it defends all my weak pawns on a3 and there. So king f7, bishop b6, I was pretty happy to find this maneuver. I don't think he dares sacrifice the second exchange, that's too much. So knight d8, rook e3, my bishop again is a perfect piece now, so I was really happy about that. And I just kind of kept putting pressure. I mean, it's pretty technical. Queen f5, yeah, and here he was low on time, so I guess he just wanted to trade, but I think this should be much better for me. But then of course I blundered, and I made it hard all over again. Yeah, bishop b4, I don't know about that, because now I forgot about this move, and then now I have to move my rook. I kind of have to do this. There's not really any other options. And now I realize, okay, so I probably made it really hard on myself, because this is going to be difficult, especially with this big pawn mass on the king side, and I don't know if my a pawn's enough. So I realize this is going to be a very long, difficult endgame here. So probably bishop b4 was a mistake, because I allowed the knight e5 tactic there. It's very annoying. a4, bishop c5, king h1. If king f1, then rook c2, and then rook f2, and it's not really what I want. I'm going away from the pawn, but I think if the pawn moves, I can catch it pretty quickly. So bishop d4, yeah, that's nice, because I can't play rook a1, because he'll play like something like rook d3, and then I have to go away from the a file. I really want my rook behind the a pawn, but it's hard to do right away. So h4, I want to go h5, and then keep his king from g6, but of course he goes king g6. Now rook a1 though, because there's no back rank. So for example, if he plays, well, let's see what he played. Basically it's the same thing. Rook here, then I can move the rook up, and the h pawn is very useful on h4, because now I don't have to worry about back rank. Bishop c3, yeah, I knew I was losing the h pawn, but I figured with my rook behind the a pawn, you know, and I don't see any way from stopping it. It should still be good. But, you know, sure enough, he's very tricky, and now his pawn mass on the king side is getting a little scary. King f5, I don't know about king f5. I was thinking rook d1 check, and it'd still be complicated, but his king on f5 kind of blocks his pawns in a way. And then king e4, I definitely don't think king e4. I think here just rook c1. And then if king d5, he can chase me further and then go king e4. And then the thing is my king is so far away, and if he starts pushing these pawns, it could be very awkward. Even if he gives his bishop up for the pawn, even if I have two rooks versus a rook, it could be very awkward for me. But now his king is kind of, you see how his king is kind of impeding his pawns from coming forward, so I was kind of happy about that. And as we can see, my pawn is getting very close to queening. And so here comes the point. Instead of f4, I think he can probably draw if he plays e4. And I was thinking rook d7, but after bishop, maybe bishop e3. The thing is, if I ever push and try to queen, I don't believe I'm going to win this. I'll probably have to be careful to draw, funny enough, because his pawns are so far, my king is cut off, and this could be very annoying. I could almost lose. So f4, I don't know about f4 though, because now after rook d7, yeah, it's probably still okay if he plays bishop e3, but for some reason he played rook b1. I think rook b1 is definitely a step in the wrong direction, because when my king, now if my king gets behind the pawns like this, and again you can see he can't push the pawn because the bishop's hanging, so rook c8, and I think his last good chance was probably rook c6, because if king f5, then I think, what was I looking at? Bishop e3 probably. And the thing is, he's still pushing his pawns and the king is kind of out of play. But when he plays rook c8, this is, I think, his last mistake. Now it's pretty much over, because after king a7 first, right? a7, rook a8, forcing rook a8. Now king d5, and this is where it gets pretty nice for me, because he can't push e4 because the bishop's hanging. And the thing is, I'm gonna check him on a3, and if my king gets to e4, I think it's just lost. So he has to be really careful here. Maybe he has to play like bishop e3, and then, for example, now the thing is he's going to play e4, but it's still kind of difficult for him because he's not going to be able to move his pawns because his king is in the way. And if he moves his king, I'll take the pawn on e4. So I think I might be better there. It'd be hard to win, but and king e3 is losing. That's the last real mistake, I think, because now check, and now it's just over because he can never move f3. The king on e4 is dominating. And rook a2 check's coming. He's going to be on the back rank, and there's really nothing he can do, and it's just game over. And yeah. So.
Well, very nicely done, and even though it was a rough start to the tournament, the last two rounds certainly went in your favor. You have one IM norm coming into this event. What is your hope for this tournament? Are you staying positive?
Yeah, I'm still pretty positive. The norm is 6.5, so I need to I only have room for one more draw after starting with 2 losses, so I don't really see the norm as, such a focus anymore. I mean, my goal is just to, play good chess compared to what I started with and hopefully gain some rating. I mean, if I get the norm, that'd be pretty fantastic, but, I'm not banking on it, so.
Well, it's a good way to think. And when you come into this event, you lose the first 2 games. That's kind of rough on a player's psyche.
Very rough.
How do you deal with that specifically?
I mean, I've lost so many games. It used to hurt a lot more than it does now. It's still painful, but you just have to kind of let it go and move on because you can't do anything about it anymore. It's very annoying, and you kind of hate yourself for it. But the new games, you just move on, and then you can only lose so much. So.
Well, when it's all said and done, Aaron, hopefully St. Louis goes down as one of your favorite places to play because of a positive memory. So congratulations. Maybe we'll talk to you later. All right, let's take a look at the International Master Norm standings after 5 rounds of play. Players in this field eligible for a norm. However, the means to get there is different for each player. For 6.5 points, Hua, Banawa, Colas, Williams, and Shankar will earn an IM norm. And due to the tougher field he will face, Doug Eckert only has to get 6 points to earn his IM norm. The 2017 St. Louis Winter Invitational continues through Tuesday, February the 21st. Follow all of the action, including the live games, at uschesschamps.com.